Hey everybody, how's it going? Quite happy with myself fitness-wise at the moment. I lost 6 pounds over the past week and a half. I tore my quadricep right around the time that I had to take this medicine for something that made me more likely to retain or gain weight. So those two things happening at the same time brought me from my normal weight of 155 to 165 pounds all the way up to 189. And it really sucked. Really sucked. But I had a very good personal trainer. I may include his number below. No sponsorship, no bullshit or anything like that. It's like no paid anything. It's just I had went to a doctor. I explained this in the live channel that said if you want to be able to walk properly or ever lift weights again, you will need to have surgery. And he politely said bullshit. And a year and a half later, I was able to deadlift 325 pounds for sets of 6. I could do my runs and my jogs without pain, and my left leg matched my right leg, which it hadn't for a really long time. My right leg was kind of acting like a kickstand. I thought I was using it, but I really wasn't. So right now I'm pedaling, no motor, because I don't need to, because I don't have this terrible pain in my right leg when I put concerted effort into it anymore, like I did after my injury and no surgery. So I'm going to discuss the new place a little bit, some of the decisions that I made regarding managing it going forward and why I made them, and also hope maybe it'll get people to understand my mindset and predicament a little bit. So I decided to hand off the entire thing to Paul. Whether or not it's worth getting angry over something, whether or not it's worth losing my mind over something, all of that is being outsourced to Paul. So now, why is that? Well, I had a YouTube comment the day before that happened, actually the day that did happen, on a different video, on a totally unrelated video. That really pointed out why I should do this. It was on a video of me fixing a board that had liquid damage that made a little puff from the SSD slot as I turned it on, saying, this is a shame. I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you did it without cleaning. That's so, the moral of the story should be that what you did was wrong and reckless with your customer's stuff. And the level of ignorance in that comment actually got a lot of upvotes, which led me to realize that if people do not work in an industry, they have no idea what standard practice is or why people do the things they do, and it will cause them to give advice that's downright dumb. Not just dumb, but be very confident in the dumb advice. Let me just give you a reason as to why it is that's dumb. So if you get something in that is heavily liquid damaged, the first reason that you don't clean it before working on it is because that's going to hide all the clues. So when it comes to basic stuff like no backlight, fine, who cares? You can figure that out even with with your brain tied behind your back. But when it comes to something like missing PM sleep S4L, if you have a missing PM sleep S4L and you just toss it straight in the ultrasonic cleaner, you're gonna miss little hints, little crumbs, little bits of green, or the worst of them all is when there's little, that kind of syrupy-ish stuff, which is not even corrosion, it just creates a stain or a blotch on the board, because that's gonna be a hint that says, look over here. And you can't afford to lose those hints because a missing PM sleep S4L can be anything. Now you can take a picture, but even if you take a nice picture, it's just not the same as looking through it under the microscope. It's not the same as being able to say, I'm not sure if that is corrosion or not. Let me just desolder that resistor, move it to the left, and see if a pad is under there. You can't do that when you take pictures of the board and clean it later. So you're gonna miss out on fixing a lot of machines that we would not miss out on fixing because we do not take that noob mentality. The second is, what is the condition of the machine for the customer? So let's say that the machine arrives, mail-in, at 1 p.m., right? That you're not opening it in front of them, because keep in mind, if you're a walk-in business, you don't got to worry about this as much. But if you're a mail-in business, then you do. Let's say the customer is not in front of you. You get the machine at 1 o'clock, you give it a cleaning, you don't try to do anything with it, you don't plug it into anything, you give it a cleaning, the next day it's dried out from the ultrasonic cleaner and it's dead. And you call the customer and say, hey, it looks like this is dead. Well, the customer sent it in for a no backlight repair. The customer sent it in for a no backlight repair. And what do you think they're going to tell you? I sent it in for a no backlight repair and now you put it in your machine and it's dead. You think that's going to be a happy phone call? No. Whereas, how about this? The machine shows up at 1 p.m. At 1:10, you open the box, 1:20, you plug it in, and it's dead. And you call the customer at 1:30 and say, hey, send us a machine. It would be this for board repair. It looks like it's dead. And they go, but I sent it in only for a no backlight repair. Yeah, I understand that, but here, take a look at these pictures of what it looks like. I mean, it's dead. They're not going to be happy. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to be a happy phone call. This is never a happy phone call to make. But since you didn't screw with it yet, and since you called them immediately, there's going to be less resistance and less aggravation and less screaming and crying and bitching than there would be if you waited a day or 2 days or 3 days and then called them to tell them that. So, not only was his advice bad from the customer standpoint, because you're going to lose trust with your customer, not only is the advice bad from a repair standpoint, because you're going to be less likely to be able to repair a number of different boards, but it's also really dumb advice just on its face, saying that SSD, that customer didn't try to turn on the machine before he sent it to me, saying that only 1.5 seconds is what it took to destroy and erode three really large copper traces and burn a hole in the SSD. 1.5 seconds, really now? 3.3 volts. 3.3 volts low amperage, really. But anyway, and the thing is, when a lot of people agreed with it. Now when it comes to construction, where do I tie this in? I'm likely to agree with a lot of dumbass shit because I don't know any better. I fully and openly admitted that I know as much about construction as the Genius Bar does about fixing shit. Honest truth. I'm not trying to be a charlatan and pretend that I know a damn thing about maintenance, home maintenance, construction, putting stuff together, craftsmanship. I had a very OCD parent. If I were to walk in the garage, I would get screamed and bitched out. If I were to even go in the kitchen and try to make myself a bagel with cream cheese, it'd be, don't you do that, you could hurt yourself on the tools. And it's like, Mom, I'm 16. And I don't know, when I grew up, I just didn't have experience with this stuff growing up. And when I grew up, moved out, I was working 18 hours a day or so to build my business so that I could afford to live on my own. I just never got around to learning it. And then I got really obsessed with this micro soldering shit and I just never got around to it. But anyway, I don't know what the hell I'm doing with it. So I don't really, I don't know what's right and what's not. So I decided to make Paul the head of this project. And essentially, so for example, I spoke with him about it. He said, well, there's different types of OSB. There's different materials, different types of OSB, different grades of it. I looked up what they were using, and I don't think it's the end of the world like people are saying, especially if they're going to put this over it after they're done. They're going to do this, then they're going to seal it this way, they're going to use this material for sealing, and then they're going to put this thing over it. Now, the bathroom, that's bullshit, Paul would say. That is absolute crap. You knew what project you were bidding on. At that point, you put your foot down and say, no, motherfucker, you're going to do the bathroom. Hell no. You knew what project you were bidding on. But with this is not the place to put your foot down. And I think by doing that, I'm going to save myself a lot of grief and misery from reading comments that may lead me to believe things that I just don't need to believe. So, I've decided to make this essentially his project. Paul visits 1 to 2 times a day, sees what they're doing, and he makes suggestions. He made a suggestion about some sort of sealant in something. I don't remember what it was. They weren't going to do. And then they said, you know what, that's a good idea. It's not really going to cost us anything. We'll do that. So, I'm more than happy to have him be the lead in the project because he knows more than I do. And I will sit back and do what I do best. Now, the other thing that's been interesting is a lot of people have said you should hire a project manager. It's dumb to not have a project manager. Honestly, it would be nice to have a project manager. Outside the fact that would, increase the budget of the project, this goes back to something that Eli the computer guy said. I actually like a lot of Eli the computer guy's advice. And this is one that he had about house painting. People were asking why, he had the same experience as I did, if not way worse, with contractors. And people were saying, you're always saying you're willing to spend money on stuff if it's not worth your time. Why don't you just pay somebody to paint this section of your house? And he said, you don't understand. If I could just put $10,000 on the table and know that this was going to get done, if I could say, here's $10,000, paint this, I would do it. But the reality is I'm going to pay that money and then they're not going to show up, or they'll show up late, or they'll show up so late that I will have already sold my house, and then I'll have to sue them, and then the company will have gone out of business, so when I sue them, there'll be nothing to actually get money from, and I will have wasted my money. Or they'll use the wrong color, or they'll paint over furniture, or they won't tape over this, or they'll drag crap to the house and ruin pieces of art. If I could actually pay $10K and know they would do the job, I would do it. But paying a professional does not necessarily mean that they will actually do what you pay them to do. And this is the experience that I've had throughout this entire process. I paid an honest, and I feel like shit's even saying it, but I found the best real estate agent, the best real estate broker that I genuinely believe exists in New York City. Like, the best. I went through a lot of them. There were a lot of them that I did not record on camera, and I found the best one. And at the end of the day, the third result on loopnet.com that I found essentially from a YouTube subscriber stopping me because he saw me on my bike and said, "Hey Lewis, you should check this out." A YouTube subscriber found me my current space, which has about $100,000 to $200,000 less in construction costs, lower rent, and more space. I paid an architect and designer because I didn't want the space to look like shit. I paid a female one, actually. It was a male-headed firm, but a female that was assigned to my project, because about 60 to 70% of my customers are female. 1 to 4% of my YouTube subscribers are female. I'm next to a university that's mostly female. I figured, would make some sense to have a female kind of design the place so it appeals to that demographic. That is my primary demographic. They drew out drawings on how to lay out the space that were the exact opposite of what Paul and Steve discussed. Anytime we would email about colors, they would email back 2 days later with 3 to 6 different choices, not even saying where these different colors go. Are these different choices, or are these just different colors for different areas? And when you'd email back to ask, 2 or 3 day turnaround. When you'd call, go to voicemail. And when they said, well, if you want to do the floor, here's the $20,000 you're going to have to give us in order to file X, Y, and Z to change something, that information was wrong when we spoke to an architect. So they wanted $7,200. I gave them a $3,100 deposit. They were willing, after 17 minutes of discussion, to give $1,500 of it back. And they said, well, if you feel this, and I had to correct him, I had to cut him off on the phone, and I hate doing this, I don't like being a dick, but sometimes you have to, just in order to get what it is you paid for, or just to not have your self-respect and dignity trampled on. Just advocating for yourself. I said, no, this isn't about what I feel. You can read the email back and forth. Do you see that email that I sent on November 26th regarding the CO? And do you see how she responded to me and said, I will get back to you? I will get back to you. Do you see how it is now December 15th and nobody has gotten back to me? This is not a feeling. This is an objective fact. You have ignored me. And this is a service that, honestly, I could have probably found some FIT intern 1 block down that needs to do some sort of design for their project and gave him $50 and said, here, you want to be a part of building a store for a company with 1 million subscribers on the internet? You want to be a part of building this? You could use it in your project? But no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to pay people an exposure. I don't want to say it's just colors. Anybody can do this. I'll give you $7,000. I gave you $3,100. I want to know if I can get back at least $2,000 of that. Just let me know in the next 10 seconds so that I know whether or not I'm wasting time in small claims court. If she gets to go through a red light, I do too. Fuck it, equality. So, let me know if. Let me know in the next 10 seconds if I am going to be wasting my time in small claims court. Because $1,500 isn't good enough. Honestly, I would rather pay nothing, but I respect the fact that your person took time to write out those 2 emails to me, and that it's my fault for choosing the wrong company. I'll accept $1,000 liability for choosing the wrong company, but not $1,500 liability. And that was a lesson learned, because that $1,000, firstly, they haven't actually sent the check yet, so you never know if I'm actually getting that refund, but that was money down the drain. That $1,000 that went to that design/architectural firm, that's $1,000 for genuinely nothing. So you could hire a project manager. But the thing is, in my position, how do you know that you can give money to the project manager and not be behind where you were before you paid them? Because if I knew that I was going to be designing the place myself, if I knew that I was going to have a useless design firm, I would have already been polling people on YouTube. I would have been polling my customers. Maybe if I had a happier customer, I'd say, hey, do me a favor. Of these 3 colors, what do you think? Of this counter versus that counter, what do you think? I would have already been on that. I wouldn't have been about 2 weeks into the construction and then said, oh crap, I have to rush and get this done before they finish. So you could easily pay somebody and be behind where you would have been if you hadn't. The only way hiring a project manager makes things better is if you hire one that actually does their job. And if you're on a budget like I am, you really can't afford to lose time or money like that. I did a video on this a while ago, was does hiring more employees really increase productivity? And what I went over in that video is not only does it not always increase productivity, increasing the number of employees can actually increase mistakes. So let's say you have a shipping person and somebody who handles RMAs. If you have one really fast person that does both and they're good, you're good. If you hire 2 average people, the person doing RMAs may forget to refund people, so you get 1-star reviews. The person doing shipping, if they're not the best at it, may ship the wrong thing to the wrong person. So you may think, well, I'm dividing the job, which means less work for each person and less likelihood for mistakes. But the reality is, if you don't get the best person for each one, you're actually worse off with 2 people than you were with 1, and you're paying more. And stuff like that can easily multiply. So I met with I left something for the people that are actually doing the work yesterday. Not the main contractor, like, the people that are actually sitting there, putting stuff together. I left him a little bottle of Chardonnay and said, thanks for making the store. Cigarettes taste like shit. Just saying, this is better. But I think it's best if I delegate that to Paul and Steve. It's also going to be nice to actually be able to have a manager in this new place. Because, a lot of people are under the impression that this business does not have a manager. It does. It's just that manager got involved with data recovery and started to find it really fun. He's got 87 drives in his queue because all these other companies are telling people $3,000 to $20,000 to recover drives he's getting for $400 to $900. And he's doing a good job at it. He actually recovered mine. Been waiting 14 months. But I finally got my data. It's awesome. It's my fault anyway. I mean, I was the one who stored my data on a Seagate, so I kind of deserve it at that point. But I can't hire a manager to replace him since he's moved on to data recovery, because somebody has to physically fit in the store. So I can't actually hire a manager or a junior data recovery person to have Steve teach how to do all this stuff too, so that he can go back to being a manager until we move, because there's physically no space for another human being in the store. If anything, in order for it to actually be comfortable, we'd have to get rid of 2 people in this current place. So this is going to be a really turbulent time period where there's a lot more responsibility, a lot more stuff that has to get done, a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot more strict with deadlines for things. I'm probably going to become more of an asshole, and I hope I don't, to my staff over money stuff. I already told one of the new front desk people, I just want you to understand and realize when I gave you that compliment the other day, usually that would have come with a raise. The only reason it doesn't here is because because this is going to be an expensive time period. But give me 1 to 3 months, and I promise I'll be giving you what you're actually worth. I appreciate it. So this is going to be a really fun time for the next month or so, where there's more work that needs to be done than people to do it. There's no space to hire other people to do it. But I think it's all going to go well. I am actually optimistic. The thing that I need to get out of my head is the idea that everything will go perfectly. Because when I first put up that sheet, I thought, this is going to be the ideal move. This will be the ideal move. I've been in business a long time. I will get a loan. I thought, well, I'm going to do it right this time. I'm going to hire a real contractor with references. Ha. I'm going to hire a real designer so the place looks nice. Ha. Nothing is going to go perfectly or as planned. And if I think that things are going to go perfectly, then everything is downhill from there. But if I'm simply happy, if I move and I have a functional business in a better location that has the space for it, then I think I'm going to be much more sane as I go through it. Because honestly, it's better now than it was last time. I don't know if I told you what happened last time I went to move to the new place. Oh, did I tell you what happened last time? Did I tell you what happened last time? PayPal locked my account with something like $15,000 or $20,000 in it, and it took almost a month to get it unlocked. That was the first of 2 times that they had locked my account. One of the reasons I'm ever so slightly salty when it comes to PayPal. But yeah, they had. I'm right about to pay the contractor, and my account has $15,000 in it, and they say, yeah, every 30 to 45 days or something like that, we're going to release your money. And that was in the end of 2011. But I made a store, and it wasn't a perfect store, but it was a store that went from, having 1 or 2 employees at the time to 13. A store that went from relative insignificance to worldwide recognition. Well, maybe the same thing will happen here. You just have to roll with the punches. Roll with the punches. And that's what I'll do. New York is so noisy all the time. Man. Such a... I'm not quite sure how well I have this Rode TRRS shotgun microphone for my phone. I'm kind of curious how well this dead cat attachment on top of it has worked. Like, have you been able to hear me, or has this been mostly wind? Because there is this little attachment that goes over it to block out wind noise, but I'm not quite sure if it actually works. It's pretty small in contrast to the one that was on my Sennheiser MKE 600, but it takes way too much effort to carry around the Sennheiser MKE 600 while I like this thing because I can just fit it in my jacket pocket and put it on the phone anytime I'm going to do a video. That's some new construction up there. See if you can see that. See those fish bowls? Those are, I call those fish bowls. Those apartments where they have it's all glass, ceiling to floor glass, and new appliances. I hate ceiling to floor glass and new appliances, because what they do is they give you $1,000 extra in appliances over what you get in a shitty apartment, but then they charge you an additional $1,000 to $2,000 a month for it. It's like, no, I'll take my 1964 stove, thank you very much. I'll take my 1989 refrigerator. That's fine. I ain't picky. I'll take my tiny windows if it means I can actually have space and feel like a human instead of a caged animal. So my apartment is about, I think 1,100 square feet is what I measured it to be. 1,100 square feet, which isn't bad in New York City. It's not bad at all. But a lot of those shoe boxes, like 400 square feet, it's just absolute junk. On the right was a place I was looking at renting a while back. There's nobody behind me, so I can show you it. Yeah, this is a great place, great place. It's definitely gonna get rented really soon. Yeah, somebody's gonna come by and, oh, there's a for rent sign on the window. Ha, yeah. $900 square feet for $10,000. GTFO. GTFO. People be crazy. Absolutely crazy. Another thing I forgot to bring up, a lot of people wonder why it is that I'm not getting wires done through the floor. If you only had any idea how often we change our mind about who should go where or what equipment should go where, having wires in the floor is just, Paul had a good idea of an overhead cable truck. And the idea is that at any given time we could change where wires go. So the wires will be neat. You know, does any of you follow that CBS Instagram account, that CBS Tech Instagram account? Oh my God. That is such porn. That is such porn. It's beautiful. But he wants to do something where it's neat like that, but where the wires are easily accessible so that you could change things at any given time. You know, if you want 2 HDMI here instead of 1, if you want 3 things for power here instead of 2, whatever the hell it is, Paul wants the wiring to be neat, not like it is now, but easily accessible and easily changeable. And I agree with it. Like, I've changed where my office is, like 5 times. I've changed where I'm filming stuff at least 5 times in the past year and a half, or what way I'm facing. But I'm constantly trying to find a way to better improve workflow. Construction and bike lane. Proceed with caution. I can't remember when there was not construction here. It makes me feel better because it means that it's not just me. Construction in New York City truly never ends. It genuinely never ends. It's always going on. You know, like the scaffolding near the store, when they said, hey, I asked, when is it supposed to be gone? And they said December or January 2020 or December this year. And I said, all right, so likely Christmas 2020 or 2021. And he laughed and goes, no. I'm like, you don't have to sell me on it. I'm fine with it. The place is actually cheap enough that I don't even care. I don't even care. And it's not like I get business from having a large sign anyway. My current store did not have a sign for the first 3 years it was open. So, but then they said, yeah, it looks like there's going to be an extension. The scaffolding is staying up later. And it's like, exactly. Nothing in New York City gets done on time. Sometimes I wonder if people are just asking to be run over here. Because oftentimes it looks like they want to be run over. The bike lane is not a good place to walk. I highly recommend the sidewalk instead. I actually have to pick up a wheel from my other bicycle before I head to the store. So, on the right, you can see my beautiful store. In front of me, you can see somebody that almost got run over. I should get a 360 camera for this so that you could actually see this stuff, because when I say on my right is this, I can't really move the camera to my right because I prefer to keep my hands on the handles of the grips of the bicycle. It helps with not dying. In front of me is an Arrow 7. Those things always have the shittiest maintenance. I don't... Tell me if I'm being crazy, but I've never seen an Arrow 7 before that did not have a totally rusted chain. Every last one of them. And I get it, you're using the hub motor for the most part, but throw some oil on that chain. A little bit of oil in the chain. Be nice to it. Look at that. Oh, God. That poor little Arrow. I just want to run up to it and give it a little bit of oil. Okay, I'd be in New York. That's an Arrow in front of me. You want to see what this bike can do? This wind is really not necessary. It's not really the cold in New York City that gets you. It's the wind. It's the wind. When I'm riding forward and I'm pedaling and I can actually feel myself being tossed off to the right, so I have to pedal and move to the left in order to go forward so I don't get kicked off of my bike. There's no reason for that, New York. There's no reason for that. It wouldn't be Manhattan if the delivery people weren't going the wrong way down the road. You salmon. This is NYU dorms over here, I believe. I forget if this is the classes, the dorms. I know there's dorms up there, right by Union Square. NYU owns a fairly large part of this area. Lower East Side. I was reading this one thing. I forget if it was I think it was Gothamist. I'm not 100% sure, but it was someone saying, New York University is taking up too much land and Manhattan, and it's displacing residents. And when I went to NYU, I was taking part in protests. Oh, you ain't out from me, my motorcycle. Oh, hell no. Vroom. And it just kind of struck me. Like, if you think about what they said, you really think about what they said. No, I go. It's NYU is taking up too much space. NYU is buying up too much space. So while I was going there, I was protesting it. You know, they may not need to buy as much space in the city if there was less demand for people to go to their college in the city. If you want them to, you know what a great way to protest is to not give them your money. But yeah, NYU kind of owns this area. And a lot of the commerce that goes on around here caters to NYU students. They have this bullshit called, I forget if it's NYU Bucks or Campus Cash or some shit like that. It's so terrible. You can, parents buy it for their kids, and then businesses can take it, but NYU takes something like 20 or 30%, I think. It's been a long time since I went for it. Like 20 or 30% of it goes to NYU. And they said, but it'll increase the sales in your business. It's like, fuck out of here. To my knowledge, no repair shop in this area is stupid enough to take campus cash. Hell, if kids want to, if you want access to your thesis after spilling water on your MacBook, you have to pay me in real cash. Here's another one, the new school. These places are crazy expensive. The new school is very, very, very expensive. A lot of the colleges here are really expensive. One thing that's really interesting to me, it's like, I hear people say a lot, the cost of education is crazy, it's rising. And it's like, it's actually come down a lot, in a lot of fields. It's come down like crazy. Oh, you want to go to college? Okay, yeah, then it went up. But like when I think about what it was like to try and learn math in high school, when I think about Mr. Mecca at Wagner trying to explain math and the entire class failing and him having to doctor and screw with the results of the tests just so that he wouldn't get fired because everybody, like 100% of the students, didn't understand what the hell was going on. And then I watch people on YouTube that have 2 or 3 million subscribers and they explain these exact same concepts. And it's just, why the hell wasn't it explained like that to me when I was growing up? That YouTube video costs virtually nothing to produce. I think they're spending about $18,000 or $22,000 a student now in New York City on school. A lot of good that's getting you. Yeah. I just find it interesting that during a time where the exchange of information and the cost of education in general has hit record lows to learn so many new topics. That's the exact same time when college has become the peak of expense. I do wonder if there's going to be a crash in my business when, like, a lot of the business we get comes from colleges. And I wonder if there's going to be a crash at the point during which people start to realize that, you know, paying $120,000 to $200,000 for a degree does not have the return on investment that you think it does. And then, because a lot of this is really a college town, you take out a lot of the business from all the colleges, and these pizzerias that are paying $20,000 a month in rent off of the idea that they're constantly going to be overloaded with college students whose parents are flush with money, yeah, that's a collapse waiting to happen. I don't even know if it's going to be a student debt thing so much as maybe it's just going to be people, just less people deciding. That's an arrow. One block down there is an Apple store. I was looking at getting a store around that area, but it was in the $50,000 range. $50,000 to $60,000 range. He said a few months more security deposit to make the landlord feel good, and $48,000 could have made the deal. Like, nah, no, thank you. You enjoy your building staying empty for the next 20 years. Ugh. It's weird because I've based my business in New York and I've signed a lease to stay here, but a part of me kind of hopes that the landlords don't rent to anybody. Like, a small part of me really hopes that the landlords don't rent out their space to anybody, and that slowly over time the city just loses its luster. People start wondering, why am I here? To be surrounded by Chase Bank, Whole Foods, and Starbucks. Why am I paying these rents for this? And they move out and leave. And then those landlords' buildings are completely worthless. Their assets go to nothing. All because they were too greedy to rent it out for a reasonable price. And then it's, they could lower the rent by 80% and nobody will rent it because there won't be anybody here. Like, it's a screwed up thing to say, but it's a little fantasy of mine. Just a small fantasy. To kind of see something happen in New York similar to what Tool was talking about in Anima to LA. I'd love to hear Maynard do a version of Anima for New York City. It really needs it. $48,000 only if you pay a good 6 to 8 month security deposit for a space that's about 4,000 square feet. Probably, I think, 3,500. You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. And I don't wish physical harm on you. I don't wish ill will. I don't wish ill health. I just hope the value of your assets permanently collapses in a way that's non-recoverable, so that you learn your lesson, and then you get to start from scratch like the rest of us. It says no bicycle, but there's a green light, and I don't know how much I believe that. I identify as a car, and there I go. I'm gonna pick up my wheel, and I will see you all in the next video. I wasn't able to stop the recording because to do that I need to take my glove off, and it's too cold to do that while I'm riding. So, see you next time.